Zara's eyes snapped open to unfamiliar darkness. Silk sheets tangled around her body like a second skin, cool, inexpensive against her bare legs. Her head throbbed. Her wrists ached with a deep, bruising pain that made her stomach turn. She lifted her hands slowly. Purple marks circled both wrists like twisted bracelets. Restraints. Someone had tied her down. My God, she whispered, her voice cracking. The room swam into focus. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a glittering Seoul skyline she didn't recognize. The bed beneath her was enormous, draped in black silk. Everything smelled like sandalwood and expensive cologne, a scent that made her skin crawl with familiarity she couldn't place. Where am I? Fragments of memory clawed through the fog. The internship orientation. Marble hallways following voices into a restricted corridor. A conversation in hushed Korean about routes, shipments, money transfers. Then hands grabbing her from behind. A cloth over her mouth. Chemical sweetness. Darkness. Outside the door, footsteps approached. A voice spoke in rapid Korean. Is she awake? The boss wants her prepared. Zara's heart hammered against her ribs. She scrambled off the bed, stumbling toward the door, locked. She ran to the window, 12 floors up. No balcony, no escape. Her reflection stared back at her. Braids disheveled, mascara smudged, the same burgundy blouse she'd worn to the orientation now wrinkled and torn at the shoulder. Then she saw it. Hanging on the back of the door was a wedding dress. An impossible fusion of traditional Korean hanbok and Western gown with blood-red embroidery snaking across white silk like veins. A note was pinned to the bodice in neat English handwriting. Wear this, or I'll dress you myself. Zara's hands shook as she tore the note into pieces, letting them flutter to the floor like snow. She pressed her forehead against the door and whispered a prayer in Igbo, a desperate plea to her mother's God. She didn't know who S1 was, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She wasn't wearing that dress willingly. If you're watching from Nigeria, Korea, or anywhere else, drop your country below and hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will leave you absolutely speechless. Trust me, the twist coming is something you won't see coming, and you'll want to be here for every shocking moment. 48 hours earlier. Mama, I'm fine. I promise. Seoul is beautiful. Zara smiled at her phone screen, even though exhaustion pulled at her bones. Her mother's face filled the video call. Worry etched into every line, gray braids wrapped in the same purple headscarf she'd worn for 20 years. You look thin, Zara. Are you eating? Every day, Mama. The food here is different, but I'm managing. She didn't mention that most meals consisted of convenience store kimchi, because she couldn't afford the international student restaurants. How's the shop? Her mother's face brightened. Mrs. Adebayo bought 15 yards of that Ankara print you sent money for. She's making dresses for her daughter's wedding. She leaned closer to the camera. Zara, when you finish this program, you'll come home and help me expand. Yes, we'll open a real boutique, not just a stall. Zara's chest tightened. Yes, Mama. That's the plan. Just 6 more months. 6 months. Her mother repeated like a prayer. My brilliant daughter first in our family to get a master's degree. After they said goodbye, Zara stared at her reflection in the darkened phone screen. 24 years old, thousands of miles from home, surviving on 3 hours of sleep and the stubborn belief that she deserved to be here. The Seoul Metro Innovation Internship was supposed to be her golden ticket, a fully funded program in business analytics with guaranteed job placement. She'd beaten 200 applicants for this spot, but something felt wrong. Her cubicle was tucked in the corner of a sleek glass office building in Gangnam, surrounded by other international interns who barely spoke to each other. The work itself was straightforward data analysis, market research, financial modeling. But 2 weeks in, Zara noticed patterns in the spreadsheets that made her pause. Unexplained transfers, shell companies, routes that didn't match any legitimate shipping schedules. You're overthinking it. Zara jumped. Daniel stood beside her desk, holding 2 cups of convenience store coffee. He was Korean-American with bleached hair and a perpetual half-smile that put most people at ease. He'd been the only person who'd bothered to learn how to pronounce her name correctly. I'm not overthinking, she said, accepting the coffee. Look at this. She turned her monitor so he could see. These transactions route through 8 different countries before landing in Seoul. That's not normal business practice. Daniel's smile faded. He glanced over his shoulder, then leaned closer. Zara, don't ask questions about things like this. Why not? Because some companies in Seoul have shadows, old money, old power. The kind that doesn't show up on any registry. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I'm serious. Do your work. Don't be curious. And whatever you do, don't go digging where you're not invited. But Zara was nothing if not stubborn. It was the quality that got her out of Lagos. The same quality that made her fight for scholarships nobody thought she deserved. The eldest man, silver-haired with a face like a blade, steepled his fingers. Miss Okafor, do you know where you are? Zara's legs trembled, but she forced her voice steady. No, but I know kidnapping is illegal in every country. One of the men laughed, cold, mirthless. My name is Mr. Park, the silver-haired man continued. And you've made a grave mistake tonight. He nodded to a guard who placed her phone on the table. Corporate espionage is a serious crime. I'm not a spy. I'm a student. Then explain this. He pressed a button. Her phone screen lit up, displaying files she'd never seen before. Confidential documents, shipping manifests, bank account numbers. Her voice recorded, I need to send this to the authorities. Her stomach dropped. That's not you didn't what? Record our private business transactions. Your voice seems to disagree. That's fabricated. I never said those words. Her voice rose, panic clawing at her throat. You planted that evidence. Park's expression didn't change. The penalty for espionage in our organization is execution. Dawn should provide adequate time for you to make peace with your God. The words didn't feel real. Execution. Her mother's face flashed in her mind, waiting for her daughter, who would never come home. I am not a spy, Zara said, her voice shaking but firm. I am a student. You have no right. The door opened. Silence crashed through the room like a physical force. Every man at the table straightened, had their casual cruelty replaced by something that looked almost like fear. The man who entered moved like a shadow given form. Tall, easily 6 feet 3 inches, with sharp features that could have been beautiful if they weren't so cold. A thin scar traced his jaw from ear to chin. His suit was impeccable, black on black, fitted like a second skin. But it was his eyes that made Zara's breath catch. Black ice, empty of mercy, full of something predatory and patient. He walked slowly around the table, around her, studying her face with an intensity that made her feel stripped bare. When he circled back to stand in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Sandalwood, expensive, his lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I know you, he said. His voice was smooth, cultured, chilling. Zara's stomach dropped. She searched his face for recognition and found nothing. I don't know you. Don't you? He tilted his head, and something flickered in those dead eyes. Interesting, Mr. Park stood. Seo-jun, we didn't expect you tonight. So, this was the empty chair, the throne. S1 didn't take his eyes off Zara. This is the spy. Yes, we've scheduled her execution for now. The single word silenced the room. S1 addressed the council, though his gaze never left her face. She's not a spy. She's an old acquaintance. I'll take responsibility. She will marry me. The words didn't make sense. Zara's mind scrambled to process them. No, absolutely not. Then you prefer execution. His tone was conversational, almost bored. I'd rather die than marry a stranger. Seo-jun leaned close, his breath warm against her ear, his voice dropping to a whisper only she could hear. Then die. But your mother in Lagos, Balogun Market, purple headscarf, fabric stall between the yam seller and the tailor. Who will protect her when my men arrive tomorrow? You wouldn't test me. On the table, a guard placed a gun beside a wedding contract. The choice was obscene in its simplicity. Her hands shook as she reached for the pen. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to let them fall. She signed her name, Zara Amara Okafor, in strokes that looked nothing like her usual handwriting. Chanique, she whispered in Igbo. God, please. As she set the pen down, S1's fingers brushed hers. She jerked back, but not before she saw it. The way his gaze lingered on her trembling lips. The way his pupils dilated slightly. Something hungry flickered in those ice-cold eyes. Something that terrified her more than the gun. The penthouse was a cage disguised as luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline. Everything was black, white, and chrome, beautiful, and cold as a mausoleum. When Seo-jun ushered her inside, the door locked automatically behind them with a soft final click. He circled her slowly like a predator assessing prey. You've grown into something remarkable, Zara Amara Okafor. She backed toward the window, putting space between them. How do you know my full name? How do you know about my mother? His smile was cruel, knowing I know everything about you, even what you don't remember about me. I've never seen you before in my life. Haven't you? He moved closer, invading her space with casual confidence. Perhaps your memory needs refreshing. That first week was psychological warfare. S1's wild desires manifested in ways designed to break her. During his business meetings held in the penthouse with dangerous men who spoke encoded language, he demanded she sit at his feet like a pet. A show of ownership, dominance. Zara stood in the doorway, arms crossed. I'm Nigerian royalty in spirit. I kneel for no man. His eyes flashed. Surprise, then something darker. Then stand there and be silent. But you will be present. You will be seen as mine. He selected her clothes daily. Traditional Korean hanbok in silk and brocade. Beautiful and suffocating. He wanted to dress her like a doll. Strip away her identity piece by piece. She wore them. But underneath, hidden where he couldn't see, she wore her Ankara print camisole. Bright defiant hers. Meals were a ritual of control. He insisted she eat with him, watching her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. His gaze tracked every movement, the way her lips closed around chopsticks, the curve of her throat when she swallowed. Why are you staring? She demanded one night. Because you're mine to look at. A signature on paper doesn't make me yours, does it? He leaned forward. You sleep in my home. You wear clothes I provide. You breathe because I allow it. The worst was the nights. Her bedroom had a lock. She used it religiously. But on the third night, she woke to find him standing at the foot of her bed, silhouetted in moonlight, her scream caught in her throat. The door was locked, she gasped. I own this building, Zara. Locks only work when I want them to. He moved closer, and she scrambled backward until her spine hit the headboard. You're my wife. There are no locked doors between us. Marriage license doesn't mean consent. She grabbed the water glass from her nightstand and threw it in his face. Seojun froze, water dripping from his hair down his perfect face. For a heartbeat, she thought he might kill her. Then he laughed, a sound without humor. Most people cower, you attack. He wiped his face slowly. Fascinating. He left, but her hands shook for an hour afterward. Yet his punishments were inconsistent, calculated. When she refused to attend a meeting, he confiscated her phone, cutting her off from the outside world. But when she dared to curse at him in Igbo, he returned it without comment. Psychological manipulation, reward and punishment without pattern, designed to keep her off balance, and his touch increased daily. A hand on her lower back when guests visited, fingers tracing her jaw when he thought she wasn't paying attention, standing too close, invading her space, making her hyper-aware of his presence. The worst part, her body betrayed her. When his fingers brushed her skin, heat bloomed. When he stood behind her, something low in her belly tightened. She hated it. Hated him. Hated herself for responding. One afternoon, while he was out, she searched his office, looking for anything to use against him. Oh wait, you're too short. Too stupid. But she wasn't stupid. The next day, during the debate competition, she stood in front of the entire school. Systematically dismantled every argument he made about developed nations versus developing nations until he stood speechless, red-faced, humiliated. She'd walked past him after her victory and whispered, "Good riddance to bad rubbish." He disappeared 2 weeks later, moved back to Korea without warning. Present. Zara gasped, yanking her wrist free. You're that monster, Min Seojun, the bully. His expression confirmed everything. A flash of satisfaction that she finally remembered mixed with something darker. You remembered, he said softly. Finally. Horror crashed through her. This is revenge. 12 years of revenge. You destroyed my life because I beat you in a school debate. Revenge. His laugh was bitter. No, Zara. Obsession. He stepped closer, and she backed against the window. You were the only one who ever made me feel, the only one who saw me as human enough to hate. You were a child, a bully. That doesn't justify. You don't understand. His mask cracked, revealing something raw beneath. My father beat me for that humiliation. Told me I was weak, pathetic. But you, his voice dropped. You made me feel alive. Your anger, your fire, your hatred, it was real. Everyone else feared me or used me. But you saw me and felt something genuine. Her stomach turned. That's sick. He didn't deny it. When I saw your photo in the internship applications, I knew I orchestrated everything. The program, the setup, the trap. I needed you here. The betrayal was complete. The internship, the scholarship, her dreams, all of it. Bait in a trap designed specifically for her. You stole my life. She pounded her fists against his chest. My dreams, my future. He caught her wrists, pulled her against him. I gave you purpose. You were going to be ordinary, a good job, a quiet life, invisible. Now you're mine, powerful by association, unforgettable. I don't want to be yours. But even as she said it, she felt the heat of his body, the thundering of his heart beneath her palms, and when he lowered his head, when his lips crashed against hers, hard, possessive, desperate, she didn't just submit. For one horrible, traitorous moment, she kissed back. His taste flooded her senses, mint and danger. His hands tangled in her braids, and she bit his lip until she tasted blood, until he groaned against her mouth, until reality snapped back like a rubber band. She shoved him away, gasping. Blood stained his lower lip. The horror of her own response threatened to destroy her. The door burst open. Jahun, S1's second in command, rushed in, face grim. Boss, we have a problem. Someone leaked her location to the Yakuza. They want the Black Rose. Zara's mind scrambled. Black Rose? What are you talking about? Seojin's face went pale. The first time she'd seen genuine fear cross his features. They think you're someone else. Someone very dangerous. His eyes met hers, and in them she saw the terrible truth. The danger was no longer just him. It was everyone. The attack came at midnight. Glass exploded inward as the penthouse windows shattered. Zara screamed, diving behind the couch as gunfire erupted. Through the chaos, she saw the men in black tactical gear moving with military precision. And then she saw Seojin transform. Gone was the cold businessman. In his place stood something feral and efficient. He moved like violence incarnate, disarming one operative with a brutal twist, shooting another without hesitation, breaking a third man's neck with his bare hands. Zara watched, horrified and transfixed. This was who he really was. Not the obsessed captor or the wounded boy from her memories, but a killer, terrifying, brutal, and protecting her. Stay down, he roared, providing cover as Jahun appeared with backup. But there were too many. An operative flanked them, gun raised and aimed directly at Zara's head. Seojin threw himself in front of her. The bullet meant for her heart grazed her shoulder instead, tearing through flesh as S1 took down her attacker. Pain exploded white-hot through her arm. She crumpled, blood soaking through her shirt. Zara. Seojin's voice cracked. Pure undisguised panic. He swept her into his arms, carrying her through the smoke and chaos to an emergency exit she didn't know existed. The safe house was 40 minutes outside Seoul, a small apartment that smelled like disuse and dust. Seojin laid her on the couch with a gentleness that contradicted the violence she'd just witnessed. Let me see. His hands shook as he cut away her bloody sleeve. The bullet had carved a line across her shoulder. Painful, but not fatal. This wasn't supposed to happen, he whispered, cleaning the wound with supplies from a first aid kit. You weren't supposed to bleed. For the first time, Zara saw genuine fear in his eyes. Not for himself, for her. Why do they want me? She asked through gritted teeth as he bandaged her shoulder. The Black Rose was a Yakuza informant who betrayed them 5 years ago. She disappeared. They've been hunting her ever since, his jaw clenched. Your mother saved someone in Lagos. A Japanese woman. They think there's a connection. My mother saved lots of people. She's kind. That doesn't make me. I know. He finished the bandage, his fingers lingering on her skin. But they don't care about truth. They care about revenge. His phone buzzed. He answered, listened, and his face went stone cold. Understood. He ended the call and looked at her with something like grief. My mentor, he's given me a choice. Hand you over to the Yakuza as a peace offering or watch the syndicate burn. Zara's breath caught. What are you going to do? Seojin was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, moving through the apartment with purpose. He returned with money, a burner phone, and a passport. Her passport. There's a flight to Lagos tomorrow morning. You'll take it. I'm staging your death. The syndicate will believe you died in the attack. The Yakuza will move on. He pressed the items into her hands. Stay here tonight. Don't contact anyone, especially not me. You're letting me go. She couldn't process it. He cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. I'm not good at love, Zara. I never was. But you. His voice broke. You're the only good thing I ever tried to keep. He walked to the door. Seo-jun, don't. He didn't turn around. Don't make this harder. The door closed. Through the window, she watched him disappear into the night. For the first time in weeks, she was alone, free. She should run, buy that ticket, go home, forget this nightmare. But she didn't move. Instead, she explored the apartment and found it. His childhood diary left on the bedside table. Intentional. She opened it and read, Father broke my arm today. Said I embarrassed him. The girl in Lagos made me laugh today. I didn't know I could still laugh. The monster had a heart and it was breaking. The next morning, the news broke. Min Seo-jun arrested, charged with conspiracy, facing execution. He'd given himself up to save her. The plane ticket sat on the coffee table mocking her. Lagos, freedom, home, everything she'd been fighting for since the nightmare began. One flight and she could reclaim her life, finish her degree somewhere else, pretend Seoul never happened, forget the man who'd stolen her choices. Except she couldn't forget. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Words from childhood. Zara, sometimes the bravest thing is not to run, but to stay and fight for what matters. Did Seo-jun matter? She touched her bandaged shoulder, remembering the raw pain in his eyes when she'd been shot. The way his hands had shaken while treating her wound, the diary entry that haunted her. His obsession had begun as poison. But somewhere in the twisted dance between captor and captive, it had transformed into something real, something worth saving. She picked up the burner phone and dialed the only number saved in it. Jehun, it's Zara. Silence. Then you're supposed to be on a plane. I know how to save him, but I need your trust. Why would you save the man who ruined your life? Zara closed her eyes. Because maybe he's also the man who showed me I'm stronger than I knew. And because he gave himself up to save me, I won't let him die for that. Another pause. What do you need? Access to the syndicate's financial records. Everything S1 had access to. That's impossible. They're encrypted, password protected. I'm a business analytics graduate student. Data is what I do. Her voice hardened with determination. Someone in that organization is the real Black Rose. I'm going to prove it. Jehun exhaled slowly. There's a laptop here, S1's personal files. He left instructions to burn it, but bring it to me now. 3 hours later, Zara sat surrounded by financial records, transaction logs, and coded communications. Her analytical mind, the same mind that had first noticed the irregularities in the internship program, worked through the patterns. Shell companies, offshore accounts, money flowing to Yakuza fronts through legitimate businesses. And at the center of it all, one name appeared repeatedly in the authorization codes. Park, the elder who'd sentenced her to death, the man who'd pushed for her execution before S1 intervened. He wasn't just corrupt, he was the Black Rose. He'd been selling syndicate secrets for years. And when suspicion fell on him, he'd orchestrated the entire charade to frame Seo-jun and eliminate Zara as a convenient scapegoat. I've got him, she whispered. Her phone buzzed. A number she recognized from weeks ago. Daniel, Zara, thank God. I saw the news about the attack. Are you safe? Daniel, I need to tell you something. I know you're undercover police. Sharp intake of breath. You were too careful, too interested in what I was investigating. Real interns don't warn people away from danger. They're oblivious to it. She spoke quickly. I have evidence of a double agent in the Mura syndicate. I need your help building a case. Zara, you need to extract yourself from this situation. Seo-jun is innocent, and I'm going to prove it. They worked through the night. Daniel provided police intelligence. Zara decoded the financial trails and Jehun filled in the operational details. By dawn, they had an airtight case. Before she left the apartment, Zara recorded a message on S1's phone, the one he'd left behind. You took my choice once, she said softly, staring into the camera. I'm making it now. I choose to fight for you, not because I have to, but because somewhere in this twisted story, I started to see you. The real you, the boy who laughed, the man who was terrified when I bled. I see you, Seo-jun, and I'm coming. She dressed carefully, an Ankara print dress in deep purple and gold, her mother's favorite pattern paired with a traditional Korean hairstyle secured with elegant pins. She was neither the girl from Lagos nor the captive wife. She was both. She was new. At the syndicate headquarters, guards tried to stop her. Zara lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of courage her mother had ever shown. I'm Min Seojan's wife, and I'm here to clear his name. The boardroom fell silent when Zara entered. The same 5 men who'd sentenced her to death sat around the glass table. Park at the head, silver hair gleaming, expression smug. He'd won. Seojun was arrested. The syndicate was his, and the inconvenient African girl was supposed to be on a plane. Mrs. Min, his voice dripped condescension. You're supposed to be dead or gone. Either would suffice. I'm supposed to be a lot of things. Zara connected her laptop to the projector. But right now, I'm the woman who's about to expose a traitor. Remove her, Mr. Park ordered. I wouldn't. Jehun stepped from the shadows, gun drawn. She deserves to be heard. Financial records filled the screen. Transaction after transaction, all authorized by Mr. Park, all flowing to Yakuza companies. Recorded conversations played, his voice negotiating syndicate secrets for protection and profit. You've been the Black Rose for 5 years, Zara said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. You sold your own people out, and when S1 got too close to discovering the truth, you framed him. You used me as bait. Park's facade cracked. You stupid girl. You think they'll believe you over me. They don't have to believe me. The evidence speaks for itself. He moved faster than she expected. The gun appeared in his hand, aimed directly at her heart. Then I'll make you silent. The door exploded open. Seojun burst through, bloody and disheveled. Zara reached out, touching the scar on his jaw, the face she'd learned in nightmares and stolen moments. You were my bully, my captor, my nightmare. She smiled through tears, but somewhere you became my choice. She kissed him, not out of fear or coercion or confused desperation, but freely, willingly, choosing him, as he'd never given her the chance to choose before. When they pulled apart, Jehun cleared his throat from the doorway. The Syndicate Council wants to vote on new leadership on going legitimate. S1 stood, pulling Zara up with him. Then let's build something worth choosing. They walked out together, hand in hand, finally equals. 3 months later, the morning sun painted the penthouse in shades of gold. Zara stood at the window, the same window where she'd once plotted escape, and smiled at the city that had become home. Her master's degree hung on the wall, earned properly this time. No traps, no manipulation, just her mind, her effort, her achievement. Beside it, a photo, the ribbon-cutting ceremony for her NGO New Beginnings Foundation, helping trafficking victims rebuild their lives. Funded by the reformed Mura Syndicate, now legitimate and focused on security consulting. In the kitchen, something burned. Chinik S1 cursed in Igbo, badly pronounced, but he was trying. Smoke billowed from a pan of what was supposed to be jollof rice. How does your mother make this look easy? Zara laughed, rescuing the pan. Because she's been cooking it for 40 years, and you've been trying for 3 weeks. He pulled her against him, kissing her temple. I'm sorry. Better. She'd been teaching him Igbo phrases, he'd been teaching her Korean. They met in the middle always. They'd started therapy 2 months ago. Couples counseling and individual sessions, working through the trauma, the obsession, the complicated tangle of their beginning. Some days were harder than others. But they chose each other every single day. We're going to Lagos next week, Seojun said. I want to do something. At her old school, he'd set up a scholarship fund in her name. Full ride for talented students who couldn't afford tuition. At Balogun Market, they found her mother's new shop, 3 times the size of her old stall, thriving in Seoul's Nigerian community. Seojun bought 15 yards of Ankara print, deep purple with gold threading. For my wife, he told her mother, who beamed. She taught me that strength isn't control, it's surrender to the right person. Her mother had hugged him, actually hugged him, and whispered in Igbo, you hurt her again. I'll make you regret it. Yes, ma'am, he'd replied, understanding perfectly. Now, watching him laugh with her mother over video call, Zara touched her still flat stomach. The pregnancy test from this morning sat hidden in her pocket. New life, new beginning. She hadn't told him yet. Tonight, she decided she wanted to savor this moment. He was my bully, my captor, my darkness, she thought, but I was his salvation. And somehow we became each other's home. Seojun ended the call and caught her staring. His smile was soft, genuine, nothing like the cold mask from months ago. What are you thinking, Mrs. Min Zara stepped into his arms, resting her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. That some cages become sanctuaries, she whispered, when you hold the key together. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories that'll keep you hooked from start to finish. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever forgiven someone who hurt you deeply? And did that forgiveness transform both of you? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. See you in the next story. 6 months later, Zara stood in the courthouse wearing the same purple Ankara dress she'd worn to expose Mr. Park. Today was different. Today was justice. The judge's gavel echoed through the chamber as Mr. Park received his sentence. 25 years for treason, conspiracy, and money laundering. His empire of corruption crumbled like sand. As they walked down the courthouse steps, Seo-jun squeezed her hand. "It's over," he said. "Really over." "Not quite," Zara replied, her hand moving instinctively to her growing belly. "We're just beginning." Their wedding was a fusion of cultures that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. Zara's mother flew in from Lagos wearing her finest gold and purple wrapper, while Seo-jun's reformed syndicate members sat awkwardly beside Nigerian aunties who treated them like wayward sons in need of proper feeding. The ceremony took place at sunset on the rooftop of their penthouse, Seoul's skyline glittering behind them like scattered diamonds. Zara wore white silk with traditional Igbo coral beads, while Seo-jun wore a hanbok with subtle Ankara trim that made her mother weep with joy. "I promise to choose you every day," Zara said, her voice carrying across the mixed crowd of former criminals and Nigerian market women. "Not because I have to, but because love is a daily decision, and you're mine." Seo-jun's voice shook as he replied in broken but determined Igbo. "I promise to be worthy of your choice, today and every day after." When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife truly this time, not under duress but in freedom, the celebration lasted until dawn. Nigerian drums mixed with Korean traditional music, while Jehun taught Zara's cousins how to pour soju properly, and her mother instructed reformed syndicate members on the proper way to tie a wrapper. The pregnancy brought unexpected challenges. Morning sickness that lasted all day, cravings for foods that didn't exist, and mood swings that left Seo-jun walking on eggshells. But it also brought moments of pure magic. The first ultrasound where they heard their daughter's heartbeat, fast and strong like a warrior drum. The night she first felt the baby kick and grabbed his hand to press against her belly. His tears when he felt their child move beneath his palm. This miracle they'd created from something that started as captivity and became choice. "Dr. Kim says everything looks perfect," Zara announced after her 20-week appointment. "She's healthy, growing right on schedule." Seo-jun repeated the word like a prayer. "Our daughter. Have you thought about names?" Zara asked. "Something that honors both sides." Seo-jun was quiet for a long moment, then smiled. "Chioma. It means good God in Igbo. And for her Korean name, Myri. It means future." "Chioma Myri Min perfect," Zara whispered. "Our future." The business transformation proved more complex than either had anticipated. Converting a criminal organization into legitimate enterprises meant navigating legal minefields, government scrutiny, and the challenge of retraining men who'd known only violence into security consultants and private investigators. Zara's analytical mind proved invaluable, creating systems and processes that kept them profitable while staying completely legal. She developed training programs that taught former enforcers how to use their skills for protection rather than intimidation, how to investigate rather than eliminate. The New Beginnings Foundation grew beyond their wildest expectations. What started as a small NGO helping trafficking victims became a comprehensive support network with safe houses across 3 countries. Zara hired social workers, therapists, and legal advocates, creating a pipeline from rescue to recovery to reintegration. Every success story felt personal. Every woman who rebuilt her life a victory against the darkness that had once defined their world. "Your father would be proud," Seo-jun said one evening as Zara reviewed foundation reports, her laptop balanced precariously on her expanding belly. She looked up at the photo of her parents on their wedding day, young and hopeful in Lagos decades ago. "They believed in justice," she replied. "They believed people could change, societies could improve. I'm just continuing their work. With better funding," he added, making her laugh. much better funding. The therapy sessions continued even after their marriage, sometimes individually, sometimes together, always necessary. Dr. Sarah Park, no relation to their enemy, guided them through the complex terrain of trauma bonding, genuine love, and building a healthy relationship from an unhealthy beginning. Some days were harder than others. Days when Zara would look at Seojun and see the man who'd trapped her instead of the one who'd freed her. Days when he struggled with guilt, so crushing it threatened to destroy the peace they'd built. "You can't punish yourself forever," Dr. Park said during one particularly difficult session. "The question isn't whether you deserve forgiveness. The question is whether you're both choosing to build something better than what came before." Zara reached for Seojun's hand. "We are," she said firmly. "Every single day, we're choosing better." The scholarship program at Zara's old school in Lagos became a model for educational initiatives across West Africa. They funded not just tuition but housing, books, technology, mentorship programs that connected Nigerian students with opportunities in Seoul. The first graduating class of 12 students all received job offers, half choosing to stay in Lagos to build local businesses, half coming to Seoul to work with international companies. Standing in the courtyard of her alma mater, watching young women receive certificates they'd never imagined possible, Zara felt the circle closing. These girls had the same fire in their eyes that she'd once had, the same determination to rise above circumstances that would have crushed others. "You did this," her former headmistress said, tears in her eyes. "You came back and lifted the ladder for others to climb." "We did this," Zara corrected, her hand on her belly where Chioma was doing her morning gymnastics routine. "All of us together." The birth happened on a Tuesday morning in Seoul's most expensive private hospital, with Korean nurses who spoke no Igbo and Zara's mother giving instructions in 3 languages while Seojun held her hand and tried not to faint. 13 hours of labor that felt like 13 years, but when Chioma Myri Min finally entered the world, tiny and perfect, and screaming with righteous indignation, everything else faded away. "She has your stubbornness," Seojun whispered, cradling their daughter with the same careful reverence he'd once reserved for weapons. "And your intelligence. Look at those eyes. She's going to change the world." Zara's mother bustled around the room, declaring the baby the most beautiful child ever born, while simultaneously planning her education from kindergarten through graduate school. "This one will be a doctor," she announced with absolute certainty. "Or a lawyer. Or maybe president of Nigeria." "Why not both?" Zara laughed, exhausted but exhilarated. She can do anything. The first months of parenthood tested them in ways neither had anticipated. Sleepless nights that blended into delirious days, the constant anxiety of new parents convinced every cry meant something terrible. The way their carefully ordered life became beautiful chaos centered around a 7-pound dictator who ruled them both absolutely. But it also revealed depths of love neither knew they possessed. Watching Seojun sing Korean lullabies to their daughter while she grabbed his finger with tiny, determined fists, Zara fell in love with him all over again. Not the dangerous man who'd stolen her choices, but the gentle father who changed diapers at 3 in the morning and talked to Chioma in 2 languages about everything from stock markets to Korean folktales. This was the man he'd always had the potential to be, given love instead of violence, choice instead of control. The Foundation's annual gala became Seoul's most prestigious charity event, attended by politicians, business leaders, and celebrities who competed to support their cause. Zara stood at the podium in a stunning gown that accommodated her post-pregnancy figure, looking out at an audience that included both former victims who'd rebuilt their lives and former criminals who'd found redemption through service. 5 years ago, she began, "I was kidnapped, forced into marriage, and told my life was no longer my own. Tonight, I stand before you as proof that no one can steal your future unless you let them." The Foundation has helped over 3,000 women reclaim their lives. But more importantly, it's proven that transformation is possible for everyone, victims and perpetrators alike, when we choose healing over hatred. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. But what mattered most to Zara was seeing Seojun in the front row, tears in his eyes, holding their sleeping daughter while her mother beamed beside them. This was her family, strange and complicated and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. By Chioma's first birthday, their life had settled into a rhythm of controlled chaos. Morning conferences for the foundation, afternoon meetings for the security consulting business, evening family dinners where Chioma threw food with the precision of a tiny artillery specialist. Weekends meant trips to the park where Seojun taught their daughter Korean while Zara taught her Igbo, both languages mixing in her baby babble like a preview of the multicultural woman she'd become. The playground, other parents watched them with curiosity, this unlikely family that somehow worked. The tall Korean man with scars on his hands playing peekaboo with a chubby toddler who looked like her Nigerian mother but had her father's determined chin. The woman in expensive clothes who spoke 3 languages to her daughter and ran a foundation that had changed thousands of lives. Sometimes other mothers asked about their story, drawn by the obvious love between them despite their differences. Zara had learned to give the simplified version. We met through work, fell in love despite complicated circumstances, and chose each other every day since. It was technically true, just missing the kidnapping, forced marriage, and near-death experiences that made their love story unsuitable for playground conversation. The real test came when Chioma turned 2 and began asserting her independence with the force of a small hurricane. Tantrums in 3 languages, a stubborn streak that made her parents look like amateurs, and an intelligence that already had her solving puzzles meant for 5-year-olds. She was, everyone agreed, exactly what they deserved. "You created a monster," Seojun said one evening as they cleaned purple crayon off the walls while Chioma napped after her latest artistic expression. "A beautiful, brilliant monster." "Our monster," Zara corrected, kissing crayon residue off his cheek. "And she's going to be amazing." The foundation expanded into education, healthcare, and microfinance, becoming a model for trauma-informed development work across Southeast Asia and West Africa. Zara published papers on organizational transformation, spoke at international conferences, and somehow found time to pursue a doctorate in social psychology while running a multi-million-dollar organization and raising a toddler who considered sleep optional. "Your mother says you're trying to do too much," Seojun observed one night as Zara balanced her laptop on her knees while reviewing grant applications and monitoring Chioma's breathing through the baby monitor. "She's probably right," Zara admitted. "But there's so much work to do, so many women who need help." "You can't save everyone," he said gently. "You taught me that healing starts with healing yourself." She looked at him, this man who'd learned to love through her patience, who transformed from predator to protector through the alchemy of choice and commitment. "You're right," she said, closing the laptop. "Tomorrow's problems can wait until tomorrow. Tonight is for us." 5 years after that first terrifying night in the penthouse, Zara stood in the same room where she'd once planned escape. Now it was filled with family photos, Chioma's artwork, and the comfortable chaos of a life lived fully. The floor-to-ceiling windows still overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline, but now the view represented possibility rather than captivity. Seojun found her there as the sun set over the city, painting everything gold. "Thinking about the past?" he asked. "The future," she replied. "Chioma starts school next year. The foundation is opening its first U.S. office. Your security company just landed the Samsung contract. We're building something incredible. Together," he added, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Always together." Their daughter's laughter echoed from her playroom, where Zara's mother was teaching her to count in Igbo while showing her pictures of Lagos markets and family she'd visit next Christmas. 3 generations of women, each one stronger than the last. Each one proof that love could triumph over any circumstance if you were brave enough to choose it. That night, after Chioma was asleep and Zara's mother had returned to her guest room with strict instructions about tomorrow's breakfast preferences, Seojun and Zara sat on their balcony overlooking the city that had witnessed their transformation from enemies to lovers to family. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd taken that plane to Lagos?" he asked. "Every day," she admitted. "But then I remember that running away wouldn't have saved anyone. Staying and fighting saved everyone, including you." "Including me," he agreed. "You taught me that love isn't about possession. It's about choice. Daily choice." "Speaking of choice," she said, reaching into her purse for the small wrapped box she'd been hiding for weeks. "I have something for you." Inside was a simple gold band engraved with words in both Igbo and Korean. "Today and always, we choose each other." His hands shook as he slipped it on next to his wedding ring. 5 years too late, and exactly on time, she said, "I love you, Min Seojun. Not because I have to, not because circumstances force me to, but because every day I wake up and choose to love you. And every day you give me new reasons why that choice is right." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise, with Seoul's lights twinkling below and their daughter safe in her bed, and a future stretching ahead of them bright with possibility. Some love stories begin with a smile, others with a song. Theirs began with captivity and became freedom, began with hatred and became healing, began with two broken people and became a family that proved love could conquer anything when it was freely given and gratefully received. Years later, when Chioma was old enough to understand, they would tell her the truth about how they met, how love sometimes grows in the darkest places, how people can change if they're brave enough to try. They would teach her that strength isn't about never falling down, but about getting up every time and choosing to keep building something beautiful from the wreckage of what came before. But tonight, they simply held each other and watched the city sleep, two people who had found their way home to each other against all odds. Proof that sometimes the most impossible love stories are the ones most worth telling. In the distance, Seoul hummed with the dreams of 8 million people. But in their perfect corner of the world, Zara and Seojun had already found everything they needed. Each other, their daughter, and the unshakable knowledge that love, freely chosen, is the most powerful force in any universe. The future stretched ahead of them, bright with promise and full of the potential that comes when two people decide to build something bigger than either could create alone. And if you're still reading, if this story of impossible love and chosen family has touched something in your heart, remember that your own story isn't finished yet. Whatever impossible thing you're facing, whatever seems too broken to fix, keep choosing love. Keep choosing hope. Keep choosing to believe that tomorrow can be better than today if you're willing to do the work to make it so. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in love stories that start in darkness and end in light. And remember, the most beautiful chapters are often the ones where we choose to turn the page instead of closing the book. Until next time, keep choosing love, keep choosing hope, and keep believing in the power of transformation. Your story is still being written, and the best is yet to come.